welcome to this video. Now today's going to be a bit of like a special album review. I'm going to be taking a look at the Beatles' absolutely classic White Album, what will shortly be celebrating its 50th anniversary some point next month. So in this video I'll just be doing my usual thing, giving a bit of background information about the album, then showing you my vinyl copy of it before looking at each of the album songs in detail. So this was a kind of change of direction for the Beatles, after the very sort of psychedelic Magical Mystery Tour album. They went to India in February of 1968 to study meditation, but actually ended up spending most of their time writing songs. All in all they wrote 40 songs while in Rishikesh, many appearing not only on this album but also subsequent Beatles albums, Abbey Road and Let It Be, as well as solo projects. So when they returned from India, they all assembled at George Harrison's house in Esher, in Surrey, and for the first time, created a set of home demos together. These are absolutely fantastic tapes that they're all being issued on a expanded version of the White Album, which comes out next month. But these really do reveal the charm behind these songs and shows sort of the acoustic nature which the Beatles were writing in. So the sessions for this album started in May of 1968 and they went right through till October, very long time the Beatles spent recording this, and those sessions, they were sometimes fraught. Producer George Martin and engineer Jeff Emmerich walked out all the sessions. They were fed up with working with the Beatles, and even Ringo temporarily quit. A possible reason for the increase in tension in the studio could have been the presence of John Lennon's partner Yoko Ono, who spent a lot of time at the sessions. She was she was quite involved with some of John's contributions on this album, but I think there was also other factors sort of general creative differences over the material as well, that could have led to the slightly frosty atmosphere when recording this. So on here they did tend to record a lot of stuff separately, and many do consider this album as the roots of their subsequent solo careers. Only 16 of 30 tracks on the White Album actually feature all four Beatles performing on them. So at the time it was their first proper full-length album since Sgt. Pepper, so there was a huge amount of anticipation for this album, and at the time it mostly got a good critical reception. However, some people they were a bit confused at the eclectic nature of the album, and considered it a bit patchy compared to previous Beatles albums. For instance, George Martin and Ringo both feel that it would be better if it had been cut down to a single record, as McCartney sort of really likes the album as it is. Feels that there is a lot of charm in the double album format. And commercially, as you would expect, it done very, very well, reached #1 on both sides of the Atlantic. In the US especially, it done particularly well, being certified 19 times platinum. But anyway, I want to now show you my vinyl copy. There's literally nothing special about this. This is just the reissued version from the Beatles stereo vinyl box set. So very minimalistic design, as we all know, just the tracks in there. The record comes out like this. The two records are both just on Apple, in these black sleeves, and they look like this. And the nice thing with this is you also get a few inserts as well. You can just get them out here. So you get these 4 lovely sort of portrait shots of like each of the Beatles, which is really, really, really nice. Love these photos a lot. And then in the other little jacket you get quite a nice poster, a sort of collage poster, which looks like this here. And you can also get a CD off this. I've got the 2009 CD, which is pretty much just the same sort of format as this. But yeah, just a really nice sort of poster. Pull out thing here, just lots of little pictures off the Beatles, got it a little bit abstract, and then all the lyrics on the back there. So yeah, packaging minimalistic, but I think really, really effective. Okay, so it's now time to go over each of the album songs. As usual, I will score each track out of 10, and then those scores will be used to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. I'm back in the USSR. You don't know how lucky you are. So we start off with the absolute classic rocker, Back in the USSR, which is a brilliant track. In this one, like the narrator's just singing about like how like he's like feeling good, that like he's like returning like back home. Yeah, just like a really like fun, like upbeat track. A little fact about this one: Ringo doesn't actually play like on this track either. Like this was one of the songs done like when like he'd like left like the band. I think it was like over this song. Like McCartney was kind of like being like a bit like controlling like over Ringo, like sort of like telling him like exactly like how like he wanted like the drums to sound, and like Ringo like just got like a bit like fed up. Like so like instead like McCartney plays the drums like on this song like along with like percussion like overdubs like from Lennon and Harrison. So you get a really sort of like very big like sort of like sound like on this track, like very like unique sort of sound on it. So yeah, wonderful way to start off the album. I feel a 10 out of 10. Now the next one up is Dear Prudence, which is another wonderful song, another easy 10 out of 10 for me. This could be my favourite John Lennon song like on the album. I mean, you've got a lovely sort of very tender lyric about like sort of like encouraging that this girl like to sort of like open up and like come out to play. Like apparently like was inspired like by the actress Mia Farrow's sister Prudence, like who like was one of like their companions like in like Rishikesh, like who like apparently like spent like pretty much all day like meditating, like just sort of like recluseful sort of like nature. Like so like this one like Lennon sort of asking her to sort of like open up, like sort of like come out and play, like sort of like come and sort of like have like fun. So yeah, just a wonderful track. Again, I love the way like it builds, like the arrangement is just like so wonderful. Like Lennon just really showing like his very much sort of softer, tender side, like which especially like around this time like we didn't really see too much of. The next up is Glass Onion, which I would also give a 10 out of 10 to. I really can't find fault with this track. I mean, it's just a really charming song, this. It's like another principally like Lennon track, this. And like I really like how it sort of got sort of self-references to sort of previous Beatles songs. Like I think like The Walrus was Paul, like is like one like significant line. Like which actually like, quite like significant because like this was sort of John Lennon sort of like mocking like sort of like fans, like you would try and find it sort of like hidden messages like in like the songs, and like this was kind of significant because it was before like sort of like the Paul was dead like sort of like phenomenon sort of started. Like so this one is it's a very sort of like interesting like lyric for this track. Like sort of mentions like fool on the hill fixing a hole and like all sorts of like Beatles songs, but just in like a really like sort of fun way. Like again, like the arrangement is really great. They sort of like they're all like pulling together like on this track really well. So I would give it a 10 out of 10. The next up is Oobla Dee Oobla Da, which is a very fun little like McCartney ditty, like which apparently caused a lot of tension like in like the studios. Like the original arrangement to this was very different. Like you could hear it like all like Anthology 3, like it was more like off like sort of like a bossa nova sort of style. Like however Lennon really wasn't pleased like with like the way like this song like was going. Like they'd done about 90 takes of it, like or something like ridiculous like that. Like so it's like sort of like apparently like sort of very frustrated like at like the recording process. Like he just like went to the piano and like bashed out like what became like the opening chords like off like the song, and like that like arguably like just like makes the song, it just gets it going and it just gets like your sort of like your foot tapping, and like yeah, lyrically it is a little bit silly, but there's no harm like in like this track here, and like it's possibly the most well-known track like on like the record, like sort of like among sort of casual sort of Beatles fans or like sort of like non-Beatles fans. Like this is probably a song which most people like would know, like despite it not being released like as like a UK single. Like in fact like no songs like were issued like as singles like from this album. Instead though, like the international like record companies like did decide to issue this like as a single, and like it did perform exceptionally like well commercially, topping the charts like in like countries such as Australia, Switzerland and Japan. And like in like the UK, like sort of like a Scottish band like I believe like sort of like realising like the commercial potential like of this song, like released like the track, like a band called Marmalade, like they got to like number one like with this track like soon after the album came out. So yeah, certainly that would have been like a sensible choice like to like have released like as a single, like if like they were like gonna do so. Like Oobla Dee like Oobla Da would get a 9 out of 10 from me. And then we get the first piece of slightly weaker filler material, like on the album. It's a thing called Wild Honey Pie, which is a sort of doodle song, like which like McCartney recorded after like another session. I mean, it's just very short, it's very silly. It's just sort of like McCartney singing like this sort of like honey pie, like sort of vocal repeated. I mean, there's no real need for it, like on the record. But it is very short. It's about a minute long. Doesn't really harm the album too much, like. But I really do struggle to give this song like any higher than a 5 out of 10.
Hey, Bungalow Bill, what did you kill?
And next up is slightly similar. It's the continuing story of Bungalow Bill, which is a sort of wacky like Lennon track, like about like a sort of collection like of like these sort of fictional characters like you go out like sort of like tiger hunting. Like, but like again, like this one was supposedly like inspired like by one like of like by one of like their campmates like in like Rishikesh, like you like sort of like went out like shooting like these tigers. I mean, this is a very repetitive song, and like I think like it's a bit like hypocritical like of like Lennon to sort of like bash like something like Ubla Dee like Ubla Da, and like yeah like do this song which is kind of just as silly and like just as like throwaway, like if like not more so. I mean like this is also notably as well the first Beatles songs to feature Yoko Ono like on it, like she like sings like a little line like in it like as well. So yeah, it's far from a favourite like on the album, certainly one like which like if I was doing the exercise like of like cutting this down like to a single record, like would be one of the first songs which I would get rid of.
Still my guitar gently weeps.
But then thankfully we're back to classic Beatles material with the next one, which is George Harrison's first contribution on the album, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, which is a wonderful, wonderful song. Originally this was written like as like a like acoustic piece, and like when like the Beatles like sort of like first like attempted to record this track, like they really were like taking it seriously, like especially McCartney and Lennon, like you really like weren't all into this track. Like so like instead like Harrison invited like his pal Eric Clapton to play lead guitar like on this track, which sort of like brought like the others like into line. Like McCartney like I think played piano like on it, like John Lennon like does some great like acoustic work like on it, and like Eric Clapton plays an absolute blinder like off like a guitar solo. So yeah, one of the absolute best Beatles songs here, an easy 10 out of 10 from me.
I need a fix 'cause I'm going down to the...
And the next one up is another absolute Stone Cold classic, I think, and like a little bit like underrated this one. Like this is a track which like most people probably don't know, like if like they're not sort of like big like Beatles fans, like, but amongst sort of Beatles fans it is one of their most like beloved songs, like I would say. It's Happiness Is a Warm Gun, which is a really great like John Lennon piece. It's made up like of like a few sort of like song snippets like which he had like lying like around, and like the title like apparently comes from like a gun magazine like which like Lennon saw, and like just thought like that headline that Happiness like is a warm gun was such a sort of like insane like thing to say that he would like kind of like name like one of his songs like after it. And apparently the other Beatles also really enjoyed this song, like sort of like supposedly like this was one like in like the sessions like where they sort of like they pulled together like as like a band, because it was a very challenging song to record this because like of like the multiple time signature changes like in it, and like apparently like this sort of like motivated them like to sort of like get like the right take and like perform tighter like as like a band. Like I believe like McCartney's like gone like on record like saying that this is his favourite track like on like the White Album, and like to be honest with you, like I don't blame him because it is one of the best tracks like on here.
Hold your head up, you silly girl.
Next up is Martha My Dear, which is a Paul McCartney solo track as well. Like I believe McCartney plays all the instruments apart like from like the brass stuff. And I suppose this song does get like a bit of stick for like being like a bit sort of like granny-ish, like sort of like a bit light. But I absolutely love it. I think compositionally it's very like advanced. Like the piano part is just is very difficult. Like apparently like to play that. And like the title, like the actual song itself, the title like was inspired like by McCartney's sheepdog Martha. Like whether lyrically like it could be sort of taken like as a sort of breakup song, like sort of like to the right sort of like to like his like sort of ex-girlfriend like Jane Asher. However, I think that the arrangement on this is like really clever. Like I love like the brass like on it. Like I love like the way like sort of like it changes like for like the bridge, like so like it goes like up and down like very sort of quickly, this track. And like yeah, it is a wonderful song. So an easy 10 out of 10 for me. Another really underrated song like on the White Album.
You'd say, putting you on, but it's no joke.
And And then we get another one of my favourite Lennon tracks is I'm So Tired, which I really sense a lot of angst, like, and like frustration, like in not only like the lyrics like on this song, like, but also like sort of like Lennon's very like intense vocals. Lyrically, it's just about sort of like right, so like not being able like to sort of like go to sleep, and like I mean, although the song is only 2 minutes long, I just love the way it basically gets its point across again like that time, and like you don't need like anything else, like you don't need like a big guitar solo, like all like sort of like the chorus like repeated like 1,000 times. It's just sort of like the perfect like song this really, like so like yeah, a wonderful track there, a 10 out of 10 for I'm So Tired.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these.
And then we're back to McCartney now for a solo acoustic song called Blackbird, which you might have heard of. Like this is like yeah, just an absolute McCartney classic. Like if like, you've ever like sort of like watched like any like off like his concerts, like you probably like know this like already. Like but like lyrically that was inspired like by like the civil rights movement, like what was going on like in like America like around this time, but like musically like by like a guitar arrangement to I think a piece by Bach, like which like McCartney like couldn't quite get right like on like guitar, like so like he sort of like he wrote like this song like around like that like Bach like, composition. So yeah, a wonderful song there, like absolute classic. I can't really like say too much about this one.
Have you seen the bigger piggies in the starched white sheds?
And the next up is George Harrison's second track on the album, which is Piggies, which is maybe my least favourite like off like his songs like on the album. I mean this one lyrically deals with themes like of greed like and like materialism like in like society. Like these are sort of like themes like which like he would like sort of like look at like again like on like his solo records and stuff like living in the material world, and like a bit like on like All Things Must Pass like as well. Like whether like this is done like in like a very sort of like satirical way. I mean maybe it is a bit sort of simplistic like musically, like sort of like melodically. However, I sense like around this time that Harrison was probably saving up like his best like compositions like for like his debut album All Things Must Pass. So yeah, for me Piggies will get an 8 out of 10. Not one of my absolute favourites on the album.
Rocky Racoon checked into his room.
But the next up is Rocky Racoon, which is a song which I've always had a bit of a soft spot for. But to be honest with you, I can't really give it more than an 8 out of 10 because it is a sort of like McCartney trying to do like this sort of like fictional sort of country ballad, like a tale like of like a guy called Rocky, like whose girlfriend leaves him like for like another man. Like so like Rocky goes out like and like sort of like tries to like sort of like shoot like down this guy, and like the sort of like fight like occurs and that. I mean it isn't one like of like the Beatles' finest tracks like by any means, but I mean it's quite charming, quite a harmless track, so we give it like an 8 out of 10 because I do rather like it.
Don't pass me by, don't make me cry, don't make me blue.
And the next up is a rather charming like Ringo song like on the album, Don't Pass Me By, which was Ringo's like first like solo like writing contribution like to like the Beatles, the first like of like only 2 songs like which like he wrote. Apparently like this track had been a long time like in like the writing, like he'd started working on it like I believe like in 1963, and I mean it is a good song, like it continues to sort of like country vibe like off like the album, like it has like this sort of like quirky sort of bluegrass like arrangement like featuring like this fiddle going on, and like Ringo like playing like this sort of like honky tonk like piano. I mean it's just a like fun little track. I mean you've got like some sort of like you've got like nice lyrics like on it as well, like just about like sort of like being like upset like at like the end like of a relationship, and like a little fun fact as well, this was apparently released as a single like in Scandinavia and like reached number 1 like in Denmark, this track. So yeah, Don't Pass Me By, a good track there, like I would say, like I would probably keep it like on like the White Album, an 8 out of 10 for me.
Why don't we do it in the road?
And then we get another one of like McCartney's sort of solo tracks. Like this is one like which like, I believe like when like the others like were like recording something, like he like just like went in and like done this one like himself. Like it's Why Don't We Do It in the Road, which is a very basic song. It is basically just like that one line repeated. McCartney does a very sort of like stunning vocal like on this. Like his vocal like really is like the main attraction with this song. However, it was kind of just like put to waste like on like such a really sort of basic track. track. Interestingly, John Lennon like felt a little bit like off like resentment because he really liked this song and like wanted like to like have been like a part of it. Like, so yeah, like this is sort of like just McCartney like just like knocking out like a song like very quickly, very basically, and would get a 6 out of 10 from me.
If you want me to, I will.
But then we stay with McCartney now for the penultimate song on side 1, which is I Will, which is a really underrated song for me. I love the lyrics on this. It's just very nice, very romantic. I sense that he's writing this one like for like Linda, like he's just sort of like saying like he's vowing like to spend like the rest of like his life like with someone. It's just a really simple production, includes like sort of like a sung bass part, just really helps the song, and just absolute classic McCartney. A 10 out of 10 for me. And then side 1 closes with another John Lennon track, The Wonderful Julia, which is a very sort of like sort of stripped back like John Lennon solo number. Like this one, I believe, is the only Beatles song which features John Lennon performing like by himself, like with like no other Beatles on it. And like I must say, it wasn't one when I first got into the White Album and like the Beatles, like what I really paid too much attention to. However, it's really grown on me like recently. Lyrically, it was written like as a tribute like to like his late mother, like who died like in 1958, like when like Lennon was only 17 years old. I mean, it's just got some lovely poignant lyrics on it, and like it's a really nice way to close off the first side. So the second record begins with Birthday, which is a kind of like rock and roll, like sort of like passionate, like sort of song. Slightly throwaway like lyrics, like about basically just like celebrating like a birthday. But it is the structure what keeps this song like quite interesting. Like sort of like the main riff like is like a killer riff, like as well like as like the sort of like birthday, like sort of like I would like you to dance bit. Like the instrumentation there is like quite like quirky like as well. I mean like the song was very quick like to write like and like record. Like, apparently like just like jammed out like in like the studio one day. So we give it like a 9 out of 10 for Birthday, like a good way to kick off the third side. The next up is a Lennon song called Yer Blues, which is another one which has recently really grown on me. Like it was one which again, like a bit like Julia, like when like I first got into the Beatles, didn't really care too much about this song. Like however, like as like I've sort of like expanded like the music taste, like this one like is one which I really do like appreciate like a lot more now. It's a bit like I'm So Tired, like where Lennon's sort of really wearing like his like sort of like self-frustration and like angst like on like his sleeve. Like it's just a really rocking moment like on like the album, like where like all the band like sort of come together. Like apparently like they recorded this song like in like a storage cupboard like at like Abbey Road. Like so they're all sort of very sort of tightly packed in. Like so like you really sense like this sort of like intimacy like with like the recording like of this track here. So yeah, we'll give it a 9 out of 10 there. Another cracking track.
All day long, I'm sitting singing songs for.
And then we get yet another solo McCartney one. Like they all actually like as like I'm just going through this, like they are like a very big handful like of like solo McCartney ones. But this is like is another one of them, Mother Nature's Son, which is another classic. I mean, it's a really peaceful track. McCartney's like sort of like lyrics like on this one basically just like about celebrating like the natural world. Like this is one which I could see being right at home like on like McCartney's debut solo album. Again, you've just got a really nice sort of like arrangement, like I believe like it's like a flute what plays like in it. It's just a lovely song. So yeah, we'll give it a 10 out of 10 for Mother Nature's Son.
Everybody's got something to hide, except for me and my mom.
And next up is a real rocker. It's Everybody's Got Something to Hide Except for Me and My Monkey, which yeah, just a real raucous like rocking track. I've always like had like a great time with this track here. Lennon does a brilliant vocal like all like this, and it just really like sort of like intense like sort of like vocal like performance like on this one. Lyrically, it is a little bit abstract. Like I've read that it could be considered like a sort of like drug song, like as monkey like is like apparently like a term like for like heroin, like which like Lennon and Yoko like were like taking like around this time. However, it could also just be like complete like gibberish, this song, like I don't really know. But yeah, just a really sort of like fun like rocking track. Again, the band really pulling together very well like on this song.
Sexy Sadie, oh, you broke the rules, we
sunny day.
And then things get a little bit more mild, like on this track. It's Sexy Sadie, another Lennon song which has a lovely like arrangement on it. Lyrically though, it is a bit more biting, like it's a attack like on like the Maharishi, like who John felt like sort of like very let down like by him, like after like allegations like of like sexual like misconduct like sort of like came up like towards the end like off like their like sort of like Rishikesh like trip. I mean, it is a wonderful song, like great like melody on it, just another absolute classic Beatles song there. And the next one is the awesome Helter Skelter, which is another very popular song like on the record. Like McCartney does this one at pretty much like all like his concerts now. And I mean, this is the Beatles' attempt at doing something very loud, like very sort of raucous. Like apparently McCartney read an interview like at the time like with like the Who's Pete Townsend. Like he was describing like the Who's latest single, I Can See for Miles, like as like the dirtiest, like most grittiest, loudest thing like in like rock and roll. Like so McCartney like basically wanted like to do like one better, and like arguably like the Beatles like did, like effectively inventing like the genre like of heavy metal like with this track. I mean McCartney's just really going for it like with like the vocals. The band are just playing great. Ringo like especially like you like at like the end like all like the song like shouts like I've got blisters on my fingers. Yeah, it's just a wonderful song, very unlike anything like in like the Beatles catalogue. And then this side closes off with Long, which is another really great George Harrison contribution. It's a lot more sort of softer, sort of toned down. It's very much the complete opposite, like of like Helter Skelter. And like lyrically, like it's half a love song, sort of like, and like half a sort of like reach out to God like sort of track. And it's a very gentle track as well, like with sort of very touching, sort of very considered like production. However, the mixing on this is a little bit annoying because the actual sort of like vocals like and like the acoustic are very quiet, and like then like you get like these sort of drum fills by Ringo which are played really well, but they're just so loud, they just sort of like overpower like the song like a little bit too much. So I'm hoping that with like the remixed White album like which comes out next month, like that's like slightly like a bit more balanced, like the mixing like on this song. Also notably as well, like there's a slightly sort of like oddball like ending like on this one here, like with like this sort of ambient like sort of like sound sort of collage thing, like it's sort of like a sort of, I think it's some sort of guitar feedback thing, like Harrison's like sort of like a wee sort of screech like from him, like it's a very sort of unsettling like ending to it, but I think works very effectively. So yeah, Long would get a 9 out of 10 from me. And then we get started with the final side, which could be my least favourite sides like off like the full sides like on the White album. But it begins with Revolution 1, which is the original recording like of like the Beatles song like Revolution, like which like we all know and love. Like it was like redone like as like a sort of like a more sort of sped up like electric, more sort of heavy version like for like, the B-side of Hey Jude. Like whether this was like as like it was like originally written, like it's a more sort of like acoustic like sort of like song, and like lyrically it's just basically like about wanting change like in like the world, but like going about it like in like sort of like a peaceful sort of way. I do quite like this arrangement of it though, like it's very different like from like the single version, because you've got like some horns like on here, you've got like these sort of like shooby dooby wop sort of like backing vocals like on it. However, this version is a little bit dragged out, like sort of like Lennon sort of like screaming like this sort of like alright, like right sort of like vocals, and that like it goes on like maybe about a minute too long personally. And like originally this track was originally going to run for about I think about 10 minutes, and like sort of like combined like with Revolution 9, like so the fade out of this like was originally going to go into sort of like the sound collage chaos like of Revolution 9, like whether I think Lennon decided like to split like the two songs up. I'm not sure whether it would have been maybe more effective like had it been like sort of like a full length like sort of like track, like might have had like a bit more impact personally. But we'll give it a 9 out of 10 though, like otherwise. I mean, like it's a lovely song, Revolution 1.
Honey pie, you are making me crazy.
And then we get another McCartney song, which is Honey Pie, which could be my least favourite McCartney one, like, on the album. I mean, it's a sort of like a very sort of traditional sort of like music hall like style track, a little bit similar like in style like to Martha My Dear, like, but nowhere near like as advanced like musically, because it's just very sort of like simplistic this track, like just about sort of like wishing that like his like lover like in like America like would like come over like and like see him, like that sort of thing. I mean, like, I really have to be like in like the mood to really like enjoy this track, so that's why I would give it like an 8 out of 10 for Honey Pie. But the best track on this side, I feel, is George Harrison's Savoy Truffle, which is just a really good like sort of like rocker like from George Harrison here, which does get lost a bit like on the album, like, because like it's a really like underrated song, like one which I think like sort of like gets like overshadowed like by Harrison's like other tracks. It was apparently written about Eric Clapton's sweet tooth, like he like sort of like liked his sort of chocolates and that, like, so this song here like sort of like references like sort of like different types like of like chocolates, like what he finds like in like a milk tray, like I like believe. So yeah, it's just a sort of like there's a lot of like swagger like on this one, like really nice horns like on it, and like again a blistering like guitar solo like from Harrison. So we'll give it a 10 out of 10. Really can't find any fault with Savoy Truffle. And next up is another Lennon track, which is Cry Baby Cry, which is another good quality song. Another one which maybe gets a little bit lost like on the album for me personally. Like it's one which if I'm not really listening to the whole like Off the White album, like I would rarely sort of like pull out and like play. Lyrically, it's quite a good song about sort of like these fictional characters like in like this sort of like royal family sort of thing, like sort of quite sort of fantasy sort of childlike lyrics like on this track here. It's Ringo like who really steals the show in this song though. His drum fills are absolutely killer like on this track here. Like so yeah, another good solid song there. We'll give it a 9 out of 10.
Number 9, number 9, number 9.
And then we get the infamous Revolution 9, which I'm giving a 6 out of 10 to, which you might think like is like a bit generous, but I really don't think there's anything too wrong with this track. It's just not particularly like sort of like again one like which like you would sort of pull out and play like out with like the album. It's basically just like an 8-minute sound collage like of like these backwards tapes loops and like these sort of like spooky sounds like and like noises. Really was like the brainchild like of like John Lennon, like he was inspired like by like Yoko's like avant-garde like art. It's certainly far from unlistenable, this track, like, but I would say it's not a song which I would play for someone to sort of like introduce them like to like the Beatles.
Now it's time to say.
And then we finish the album with a Ringo lead vocal for the song Good Night, which was written by John Lennon like as like, sort of like a lullaby like for like his son Julian. Like Ringo sings the song particularly well. I mean, you've got a lovely string arrangement like for like George Martin like on it. Again though, it isn't one which I would ever play outside like Off the White album, but it really is just what we need like after Revolution 9. Like this song, it just rounds things off very, very well. So we give it a 7 out of 10 for Good Night. Okay, so that's been my mammoth review of the White Album. It would score overall 89%. So, I mean, this is a brilliant album, like, there's no doubt about that. However, I mean, there are some slightly dodgy tracks I got here, but I feel that is kind of what gives this album, like, its charm. Like, it's sort of, like, got so many different musical styles on it. Like, there are some sort of doodles on it, but there's some absolute sort of, like, killer, like, sort of, like, rock and roll, like, sort of, like, playing, like, on here, like, where, like, a band, like, really coming together, like, as well as sort of like exploring like their own things. I still think that the quality control like was like particularly good like on like this record compared to like a lot of like other double records like which just tend to have quite a lot of filler like on them. This one like for the most part like retains like its like quality level like throughout. And there is this age-old question of would this have been better like as a single record? Possibly would have been more consistent. You would have probably ended up with an album basically full of 10 out of 10 songs, so like 100%, so like perfect album. But I think personally you would have lost like a lot like off against charm. I don't think it would have had the same impact impact, like the material, because what makes a lot of these songs great, like, is like sort of like the company that which like surrounds them, like it's sort of like the group of songs like here, like very much like with this record, like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So yeah, that's been my review of the White Album. Like happy 50th like birthday to it, like for like next month. I hope you have enjoyed this review, and I will see you all next time for the next one. Goodbye.